things are starting to pick up now in Champs vs. Stars. We pair off today. We're finally seeing like big moves made. How are you this morning?
I am a little tired. I mean, I've been going pretty hard here, trying to do stuff on the side while obviously still maintaining the 9 to 5, as we all know and love. And yeah, I mean, Champs vs. Stars is always a nice, the challenge, I should say. The challenge as a brand, let's say, is always a nice relaxation kind of, yes, this is a side project. Yes, it's like, quote unquote, effort and work, but it's fun, right? Like I'm watching a reality show and then talking to one of my friends about it. At the end of the day, hey, that's all right. I'll wake up early to talk to one of my friends once a week. Nothing wrong with that.
Let's introduce ourselves. I'm John Chidley Hill.
And as always, once again, I am Sheldon Alexander.
And this is You Killed It, the podcast about the challenge. Champs vs. Stars. We knew this was going to happen, and if you follow any of the challenge social media accounts, you basically got a sense of what the pairs were going to be. Top pick, Tony takes CT, which to me is a slam dunk.
Yep, agreed.
For him. Like I don't even want to say that it was spoilers that the challenge Instagram and the challenge Twitter showed that those two paired up, because it's obvious, right? Like, if you're a champ, obviously you want to pair up with a champ. Who's the best champ to pair up with? CT. Done. Like, it's that straightforward. What did you think of the other pairings, though?
You know what? Shout out to Team Dad Bod, Tony and CT. I think that's a great pair. It's a great move by Tony, for sure, taking CT. The other pairs are super interesting because Booby had second pick, and I think this is where the most interesting move was made, because he had all the options at his disposal, and he picks Wes, which I think Wes obviously is a great pick, but it's pretty interesting because we were kind of teased of this, right? Just because of the way, if we go back to how Booby was talking about Wes just on the blue team and just his admiration that he has for Wes and the gameplay that Wes has, and how, remember, he wanted to save Wes. He wanted Wes to still be a part of the blue team because he knew what Wes was capable of, but also the benefits that he would have from being on the same team as Wes. So I think that was like, a couple episodes ago when Wes went in and had to beat Devin, right? It was that episode?
Yes.
Booby was pretty happy that Wes was coming back, so I wasn't really that surprised per se, but I found it super interesting at the same time because it was a bold move to take Wes with the second pick, as if you're Booby Gibson, and this whole breakdown of it's Champs versus Stars, but blue team versus whatever, but now we're pairs, but it's still Champs versus Stars. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he broke ranks, and it's interesting because in my mind, like, if you're Booby, you want Louise or you want Casper. Like, I find Casper super annoying, judging by how people are talking on the Facebook challenge group. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much the consensus. But he is a good competitor.
Yeah.
And, like, you have an established alliance with him. And Louise is no joke either. Like, she is an Olympian. Like, she is... I mean, you could make a case that Louise is the best athlete on this show. Full stop. I mean, Booby himself is also a world-class athlete, but, it seems like that's the natural pick. So it's interesting that he broke rank. I think Wes is going to be dining out on the fact that he was selected over Casper and Louise for quite some time.
Yeah.
And then, Louise and Casper are the next partnership. I forget who picked who. I don't think it really matters.
Yeah,
but they picked each other.
Yep.
And then we had Brooke and Shane team up. And Drake selected Kayla.
Kayla.
Which is also in... Kayla? Damn it! Kayla. Why do I screw up her name? Drake picked Kayla, and who else did we have? Then we had
We have Little
I'm
Mama and
forgetting the
Tori, and then we had
yes, Team Energy.
Team Energy. Yes, I like that. And then last but definitely not least, or depending on, I guess your viewpoint here, Salida and Jose.
I mean, yeah, last and least. In which case, Salida would be last and Jose would be least.
Yeah, I mean, it was super interesting just how that all played out. And I mean, it's interesting because it was well plotted out by the producers in terms of making sure that the leaderboard mattered throughout the year. And I don't know that people realized just how that would come into play, right? And I think it was a
Yeah.
nice solid twist, right? Because it made sure that those things mattered, and it played out. It gave more of a benefit to people who did well in challenges, who were named MVPs throughout the year as well, which was also something that I don't think people were really paying too much attention to, right? People
No.
were just kind of throwing that out there. And now, those throwaway MVP votes, I bet you there's some people that might want to have those back. So it was kind of interesting to see that play out. And yeah, in terms of the teams, obviously we know like the teams that went early, the CT and Tony team is pretty strong. Obviously, Booby Gibson and Wes is a strong team. But other than like the obvious ones, who's kind of like the sleeper team in your mind as soon as you saw how the picks broke down?
I think Drake and Kayla,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because Kayla is no joke as a competitor, and Drake is pretty athletic and like has a good head on his shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and we saw this quite obviously, that the big problem with all these teams that are half champs and half stars is coming to decisions. But in terms of pure competition, Kayla and Drake, to me, are the sleepers there. Was there a team that you thought was a sleeper, or do we align with that?
No, I think that's a pretty solid pick. I think on the low, the Brooke and Shane team will be. I know this sounds like hindsight, but I think even going in, just because there's a direct chain of command, for lack of a better term,
Yes.
Brooke kind of is honest about the fact that she's not really sure about the gameplay and how that works. And so she's going to leave that to Shane and she's going to trust Shane. But she's going to go out and give her best. She's going to try hard. She was ready for the competition. Like, I just think in terms of if you're going to have a team that's split between the champs and the stars, it's very important that at least you're on the same page. And they at least you knew from the outset would be on the same page, and the rest cannot be said for the other teams that were split between a champ and a star.
Yeah, I just have to say, I really like Brooke as a person. Like, she just seems like such a nice, friendly, fun, positive person,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I think we've had this debate before. I think she's arguably the biggest star on this season. I guess Arian Foster, depending on like what angle, or Drake Bell, depending on like what your interests are.
Yeah.
But I quite like Brooke, and it's worth noting her brother Nick and her mom Linda were briefly on this episode.
So here's my
Seems like
thing.
the Hogan family is trying to get some screen time.
Yeah, here's my thing, right? And hey, shout out to Brooke's agent. She probably has a really good agent that negotiated some extra ish in terms of, okay, well, if she's going to do the show, we also just want this, we want this, we want this. And, hey, more power to you. But at a certain point, and maybe this is, my cynical, evil producer side comes out every once in a while, where I'm kind of just like, hold on. Are they trying to sell us a show right now? Like, is the Hogan family like going to have an MTV reality show like the Osbournes or something? Like, is something coming right now? Like, is this why we're getting such a heavy dose of Brooke Hogan's family? Right? Because I haven't seen anyone else. I think we saw Casper's dog maybe, but we haven't seen anyone else's family just appear on the show. Right? Like, isn't that a little bit much? Like, that seems kind of out of the ordinary. Then, I mean, it was one thing to do the blatant FaceTime with your dad, but then now your brother and mom are at the actual hotel that you guys are staying at and having dinner, and Shane walks in like, "Oh, is this your family?" Like that was just bad acting, right?
Oh, I didn't know.
Right? But it just seems like we're being sold something here. Like, is there an MTV show coming up this fall starring Brooke Hogan and her family? Right? Like, I don't know. I was also talking to a couple of my wrestling buddies, a couple dudes I work with, right, that are super into wrestling. Because I was just asking them, I'm like, hey, this, like, Hulk Hogan's coming back, right? And they seconded, they did agree with what you said that, yeah, this it looks like that's going to be the move. So just getting that Hogan family name back into the mainstream consciousness, it could all be a ploy.
Yeah.
The evil genius that is Vince McMahon.
Yeah, well, and like don't sleep on Hulk Hogan as being a master manipulator. Like he's famous. If you're super into wrestling, Hulk Hogan is famous as like the world's greatest locker room politician. Like that is his reputation about just pulling strings and being manipulative. So this is well within his playbook. It's what interests me the most is that if we're right, he got his ex-wife in on it. Like he and Linda Hogan are not together anymore. So like however they coordinated this, they're putting business before personal issues.
Yeah, let's see. Let's just say if the reality show is coming, know where you heard it first, right? Just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying. What else was going on though? We got a little conversation where we find out that Wes's master plan is that he's now has his sights firmly set on trying to take out Louise and Casper. And
yeah, which I like. I like that now. I like it on seasons, not just of Champs vs. Stars, but in general, when everyone puts their cards on the table.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's, to borrow a phrase, that's when people get real.
Yeah.
And I always like that turning point, and I like that we're there now. And when it comes to the deliberation scene, which we'll talk about at length in a bit, I really liked that everyone was just straight up. And I love that Wes is like, very clear, Louise, Casper, I'm coming for you. And like, everyone knows who everyone is backing.
Yeah.
There's no surprises here.
No, it was outstanding to see. It was fun. And at the same time, Louise and Casper are trying to get out CT and Tony, right? So it's super interesting. We know where everyone's cards are, and we kind of get an inkling about what the next challenge is going to be, because there's a full-on conversation where we find out that Jose can't swim. And
yeah.
He says, and I guess this is my quote of the week, Jose says he can't swim because, quote, his grandma put him on a rock in the middle of the ocean and told him to swim back.
Yep, that's a strategy.
Wow. I mean, I've heard of interesting teaching skills or interesting teaching methods. John, I think you do a little teaching on the side.
I do.
I mean, wow, that's one way to learn how to swim, but I guess it didn't work, so I guess it's a bad teaching method if you didn't already figure that part out. But what did you make of Jose?
I gotta say, I would, just in case any of my students are listening, I would 100% put any of them on a rock and tell them to swim back. But I was so mixed about this, because on the one hand, I don't like Jose. On the other hand, I felt bad for him, right? Like, it's, I think, easy to make fun of, like, the adult who doesn't know how to swim, but that sounds like a legitimately terrifying experience.
Yeah.
And, things like learning how to ride a bike and learning how to swim are significantly harder as an adult, because we have a sense of danger, right? So, like, a kid, you can actually literally throw in water and they'll, like, freak out for a minute and then they figure it out. But, like, adults just freak out because we have a greater sense of our own mortality.
Oh,
so,
sure.
like, on the one hand, I was like, good like looks good on you, Jose. On the other hand, I'm like, man, that sucks and it's embarrassing. You're teamed with a supermodel and on national television, and you look bad. And low key, what makes him look worse is Lil Mama apparently can't swim either, and she did great in this competition just by like being talked through it and staying calm, and like she basically got through it by willpower.
And
So
I think your example there of comparing Lil Mama and Jose is super interesting, right? Because to elaborate just a little bit, right? It's like Lil Mama, you can tell she never really, like, she went swimming as a kid, it looked like she mentioned that she just never really swam that much, right? And then it was never really a thing like, oh, learn to swim. But definitely she'd been in the water before. Whereas Jose, his story, if true, um, you could see how someone would be like traumatized by that. And like, that's how someone would look if they're just like trying to fight for their life in the water. But my question is, they did a really good job of filming this, because I'd assume that if you
yes,
know that he can't swim and he jumps into the water, we know there's obviously lifeguards standing by, and I'm sure there's lifeguards in the water, especially when they know that he can't swim. But I didn't see them. And I think that they did a really good job of framing the shot and like filming this, right? Because you have to assume that there's huge liabilities if there's someone telling you, hey, I can't swim, and then there's no lifeguards around, right? For when this guy
yeah.
jumps in the water, you know what I mean?
And all it takes is someone to hit their head.
Yeah.
Like in that situation, just for insurance purposes, even a great swimmer like Shane or Wes, like accidents happen, so they're gonna have a lifeguard.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question for you that just occurred to me though. They're at this fancy hotel, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they're staying in. Don't you think it has a pool? Like if you're Jose
True.
and you find out, like, oh, the next competition's a swim competition, because they talk about it. Like they must have had some idea, right? Like they must have been giving them their like matching swimsuits.
Yeah.
Don't you think that like you'd be like, oh shit, and you like pull aside Salita and you're like, here's the deal, and you go down and you at least
You try to
figure out
practice.
how to tread water, yeah, or like you get in there, and he said he's never been in water like beyond his waist.
Yeah.
Like, don't you think you at least go into the shower line and like walk out so it's like neck level? Like try dunking your head, right?
Yeah.
Like just to get it over that. Maybe that's what Lil Mama did, because I thought, I mean, she not only did she not panic, but she moved the hoop around on their pipe
Yeah.
a little bit. Like I think Tori did the heavy lifting, but like Lil Mama contributed.
Yeah. Tori definitely did the heavy lifting, but the whole fact that Lil Mama like went underwater and was, an active participant, right? Like, imagine not being able to swim, but then going underwater, like swimming underwater. Like, I can't fathom how, I don't know if scary is the right word, but how awkward that would make you feel, right? Because clearly it's not something that you're used to or that you've done often, right? I just found it kind of weird. And, it looked like they saved the parts for her where, your head is pretty close to the top of the water. So it's not like she was going to the deepest part or anything, right? Tori definitely took care of that part. But still, just the effort that was shown, I thought that was outstanding. That was pretty cool. That was amazing. That's one of those things where you're like, shout out to you, Lil Mama. Shout out.
And there's the extra tension of doing it all like for TV,
Oh, for sure.
right? Like extra tension and like potential for embarrassment.
Hmm.
Like there's a lot there.
Oh, there's so much there. You're totally right.
And shout out to Tori for being like calm and nice and supportive.
Oh, definitely. That's where having a good teammate, again, that's where your teammate matters so much, right? Because, I will give Salita credit because I think she handled it a lot better than I thought she would have, right? But there were still a lot of moments and definitely some meme worthy Salida looks to the cameras while Jose was explaining his lack of swimming ability. I thought that was really
Yeah.
funny. And she handled it again, she handled it a lot better than I thought she would going in. But at the same time, Tori did a great job. There was even the confessional where Tori was explaining, hey, like I know how you have to motivate mama and it's not going to be like to be honored or like get honor, so I'm going to try to help her. And they showed the scene where they both put their heads under and Tori was kind of like pointing, okay, just go from here to here and then I'll do that part. And then, like they're really organized and Tori really did a great job.
I think I like this challenge in general because it's well filmed. It's not the classic challenge of people falling from a height into water.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a different skill set. Like you don't have to be necessarily the biggest and strongest. You have to have a common skill, and you also really have to like think strategically and stay calm. Like one of the smart things about Tori being so supportive of Lil Mama is that it bought Tori, that is, like 30 seconds to catch her breath and calm down. Because like more than anything, I think it's staying calm is the biggest part of this competition, which is why Jose was in so much trouble.
But even Jose, I was surprised. Like I thought he was just gonna sink like a rock, and the fact that he didn't, I was like, hey, I give him a lot of props for being able to just even stay up, right? Like I thought he was definitely just going to sink to the bottom. Someone was going to have to save him. I guess he did the smart thing and finally just making it over to the buoy, or what was that? What's that thing called? I totally forget. The like line. There's like an actual name for it, and I totally forget for some reason.
Oh,
but anyways, doesn't
there
matter.
is a line,
It's
but
like the lane.
there is a word for it.
I don't remember what the
Yeah.
lane is or what the name is for it, but whatever. He made his way over to that, and that ended up holding him up. And so, he didn't do anything. And I give credit to Salida for not just giving up and saying like, "Oh, we quit" or whatever. Like she tried. The way that they cut it,
Yeah.
anyways, it seemed like she gave the full 30 minutes. So credit to them for at least trying. I'm okay with that. No quitters,
Doing that
right?
for half an hour would be exhausting.
Oh, so much so.
Like that would suck. And the eventual winners, Shane and Brooke, they did it in like 6 minutes.
Yeah.
So like it wasn't a short task even for the fastest team,
Mm-hmm.
but like to do it solo for 30 minutes, man, that would be exhausting. She would have been wiped.
Definitely. I wonder too, just, looking at how that challenge played out, we saw the key that Booby was paired up with Wes obviously being a great swimmer, and then Brooke being paired up with Shane, who we also know is a great swimmer. Just seeing like those advantages and how that played out for both of those teams and both those stars, right? Like early advantages for them for sure, just in terms of having the high picks to pick good stars to pick good champs to be on their team.
Yeah. It makes a big difference.
Are you a fan of Shane?
Yes.
Okay.
I am. I know I took a big pause there.
No, that's allowed.
The thing is, Shane is such an erratic person. Like his decision making is so emotional that like in real life I would find that exhausting. But he makes for great television because he's a super smart guy.
Yeah.
And he's a good competitor, and like he's good at stirring shit up.
Yeah.
Like he makes for good TV.
That is definitely true.
I thought it was funny where like some of the stars are debating like what Shane was gonna do. Like, oh, maybe we can convince Shane to nominate CT and Tony, and like they're like, oh, there's no. The entire time they're having that debate, I'm like, no, it's Shane. Like Shane's not a stupid man.
Yeah.
He knows that the play is to put up Casper and Louise. Like
He knows the move. Yeah.
there's no doubt. Like there's never even a glimmer of hope that he would do anything else. Because Shane is smart. He's not. in terms of gameplay, he's not like a Wes or a Devin or even a Johnny Bananas, but he's not a dummy. Like he's not easily misled. He's like very focused. So
I think Shane's major issue that he has on the show is that he just becomes super emotional, and I think his emotions get in the way of his gameplay, and that's probably his downfall as to why he might not be as successful as some other competitors on the show.
let's talk about the deliberation because I have thoughts on the deliberation.
I'm here. I'm here for that. Yep.
So for our listeners, I have spoiler warnings for you for this conversation.
Oh, okay.
And I'll tell you why. We haven't really discussed Final Reckoning. But if there's anything that we have learned from Wes on previous times that he's been on the show, part of, like, something that you have to keep in mind for Champs versus Stars is that when they're recording, the champs know who's going to be on the next real season of the challenge.
Yes.
And he made the point, I think it was Champs versus Pros, he made the point that there's an episode where CT threw Wes in over Darrell, and Wes told us it was purely because CT and Darrell were going to be on the next season of the challenge, and they knew it,
Yeah.
and CT had to do it as a looking ahead game move.
Yeah.
And I think if you watch the deliberation, Kayla, did I say that right?
Yes, yes.
Kayla at one point says to Drake, like, no, like, this is my money. This is, that's at stake. And I think there's, I don't know, if you look at a lot of the conversations between the champs and the stars, there is an unspoken tension in what they're saying, right? And for context, according to Vevmo, which is very reliable, some of the people that are on Final Reckoning that are also on Champs vs. Stars are Kayla and Tori. Not that he really figures into this issue, but Jose, CT, Tony. There's another one. I want to say Shane is also on it. Yeah, Shane is on it. So, for those ones, for Shane, Tony, CT, Kayla, and Tori, not Jose, he doesn't matter, they also have to think about the fact that I don't want to piss these people off.
Totally.
Like,
true.
it's not just friendship. Shane says at one point to Brooke, like, no, these are my friends, which I think is true. Like, Shane and CT at this point have known each other for, like, a decade.
Yeah.
But also, Shane also has to say to Brooke, like, hey, I'm essentially about to go into business with these guys in, like, 2 weeks' time or whatever the gap was. And I think it's especially important to keep that in mind for the conversations that Kayla and Tori are having, where they don't want to throw CT and Tony in, because CT and Tony probably, like, if history's any indication, probably go pretty deep into Final Reckoning.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. It's a super interesting point, John. And to be honest, I didn't even really make that connection at all. I kind of just thought of it in terms of very short-sighted, actually, I'll admit, just in terms of this game and, just the relationships that they already have. And I kind of took it as, I'm friends with these people. I have relationships with these people. Of course I have to go with them. You're just on a show with these people and you'll never really talk to any of the other stars again. Like, that's kind of how I took it, but you are totally right. Like, as I think about it now, as I hear you explain that, totally makes sense and it's totally correct. And Kayla is right. That is a smart move by her for sure.
Yeah. And it's another thing, again, we have to assume that just in general, they have a sense who's going to be on Final Reckoning. They don't know the format, but one of the important things is Johnny Bananas is on that season.
Okay.
But Johnny does not have a ton of allies on that season. CT would, in theory, be his ally. Shane, in theory. But there's no Leroy. And, like, he's got Kara for sure. Um, I don't want to spoil what the format's about,
But
but certainly if you're just looking at who's going to be there,
yeah,
it doesn't look good for Johnny Bananas. So people like Kayla and Tori know that this is Final Reckoning is going to be a season to be making power moves because the Are You the One crew is probably in a better
the
position
next
this season.
generation of the challenge is coming, or it's here.
Yeah,
It's here.
no spoilers beyond that.
Okay, okay. I like that, John. I like that angle for sure. But to go through kind of what happened, right? Like it is pretty straightforward. So Brooke and uh, Brooke and Shane end up winning the challenge, right? As we
Yep.
discussed, Brooke kind of falls in line and she lets uh wow, excuse me. She let Shane Brooke falls in line and she kind of lets Shane take over and Shane be the MVP and make the decisions, right? So they decide, as discussed before, that Casper and Louise are going to be the ones to be the LVP and automatically head into the elimination round. But then things get interesting because now is where we see the votes start to split, right? Because there are teams that obviously have one champ and one star, and they cannot decide who they're trying to send in against Casper and Louise. They can't decide because the stars want to vote in CT and Tony. The champs want to vote in Salida and Jose. I'm kind of confused by this, John, and here's my thing, right? If you're so worried, right? If you're the stars, sorry, if you're the star, no, sorry, pardon me. If you're the champs, right? And you think that Casper and Louise are the best team on the other side for sure, right? And you're trying to get rid of them. Is sending in Salida and Jose really the way to go about that? Or is it just like the
No.
only option? Like I'm so confused by that.
Yeah. So I had questions about this too, where Louise and Casper are rooting for CT and Tony to go in against them. They voted for those two
Yeah,
to go in against them.
yeah,
That is the last team I would want to face.
right.
Like I know Louise and Casper
Extremely confident.
uh, are are extremely confident, and they're not pushovers.
No,
But like, if I'm them, I'm like, yeah, bring on Salida and Jose,
yeah,
right? Like, if the goal is just to make the final, yeah, eliminate them, no problem. I would take uh, Casper and Louise Hazel over Salida and Jose 99 times out of 100. Like, sight unseen, unless there's some like, unless Jose is a puzzle master or something, and he doesn't strike me as the type. I'm not worried at all, and you're just one step closer, and you get to come back and take another run at competing again. Like, live to see another day. Like, I don't understand. I know they're all locked into this like champs versus stars, and they don't want to take out two other champs.
exactly. And I totally agree with that point, John. I think that is the main focus, the main point. Like that's what you should be thinking about if you are, you know, Casper and Louise. The one thing I think, the more and more that I pay attention to them and their confessionals and just the way that they carry themselves, and I think that they're just not afraid of anyone. Like they don't care who they go into, and maybe it's too much cockiness, like it's crossing that line of being confident into cockiness. I don't know. Time will tell, obviously. But I think that they just firmly believe, oh, well, we know Casper's cocky.
Yeah,
And as you said, Louise Hazel's an Olympian, so she's not going to be worried that she can't beat CT and Tony. And also, they have the benefit of knowing that whatever this is, like it's obviously not going to be a physical elimination, even if it was against Tony and and CT, right? Like they know it's not going to be like the Powerball tackle basketball or whatever it is that they play, right? It's going to be something else. And so if that's the case, doesn't that remove a lot of the advantages that a CT and Tony team would have in normal situations heading into an elimination? I just think it's one of those things where they're just so confident that they think they can win that they're like, nope, we're just going to take out their best team. We think we can beat everybody.
Yeah.
And again, we know that it's not going to be a physical competition, and so that would be their main advantage over anyone else, right?
Yeah, although the thing is, CT is not bad at puzzles. Like,
True.
I wouldn't say he's the best. I would take Sarah or Cara Maria over him, or Devin or Amanda. Like, to me, those are like the real like puzzle killers. But he's certainly above average. If those ones I just listed are like tier 1, he's tier 2. And I think he and Tony would have the teamwork necessary where Tony would like just take a step back or just do as he's told. Which is important.
No, I can agree with that. I can agree with that. I mean,
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so then everything ends up getting split because Kayla and Drake can't come to an agreement, obviously. Then we have, who was the other team that couldn't come to Lil Mama and Tori. And that one was really funny because both of them were just kind of standing firm and kind of like mean mugging, right? Because they were just kind of like, really? Like, we were not going to agree. And Tori tried to compromise a couple times and say, you know, okay, so how about this time we just try to do this? And then, like, she was trying to compromise, and Lil Mama was having none of it. She just stood her ground, and it went to, in both instances, it went to this thing where The Miz basically pulled a name out of a hat, and that's the person that got to decide. And so, how did this end, John?
Well, it did not work out well for Tori. Lil Mama's name was drawn. She voted in CT and Tony. And then it came down to Drake and Kayla, the same thing. They couldn't come to an agreement, so the Miz drew a name from the can, and it was Kayla. So Kayla, she had a visible look of relief. She voted for Salida and Jose, which left it to Wes and Booby. And Wes, to borrow some basketball parlance, put on a full court press on Booby, saying, like, no, this is, like, we got to put in Salida and Jose. They cut to CT in confessional saying he didn't trust Wes to get the job done for him, that Wes has been playing too political.
Yeah. He didn't know what to expect from Wes. He didn't know if Wes could pull it off. Yeah, I don't know, man. It kind of looked like one of those things where if I'm CT, I wouldn't know what to think either, right? And it's funny because I don't know what's going to happen next week. I think they ended it on a nice tease so that there's some form of drama heading into the next episode. And really, I could see it going either way, right? Because Booby Gibson and Casper and Louise, and Drake, they made a pretty solid alliance, right? And that got them to the point where they are now in the game. And I could see it going either way if you're Booby Gibson in this instance. And it really comes down to what confidence you have in either the champs teams or the stars teams to win the following challenges. Do you know what I mean?
See,
because if let's say that Booby decides that he's going to stick with his stars, right? Wes is then screwed because now that team is considered another stars team, right? So now you're throwing in Wes, but the thing that doesn't really make sense to me again from the beginning is why do you run the risk of, hey, let's say you're Booby Gibson, you decide you're with the stars, but then you throw in CT and Tony, they could win, eliminate your best like alliance member team, and then now CT and Tony come back and they're gunning after you.
Yeah.
And you're a weaker alliance. Like, this is why this whole thing doesn't really make sense to me. Or maybe I'm missing an angle. I don't know. But what do you think?
See, to me, I think it's I think that they did a really good job of editing to like sow those seeds of doubt. But I think Booby is gonna put in Casper and Louise. Like, I think that's for sure what's gonna happen. And I'll
No, you mean he's gonna put in CT?
Oh yeah, no, sorry. I think he's gonna put in Salida and like I think he's gonna stab the stars in the back. I think he's gonna put in Salida and Jose.
Is that because of Tori walking out, like in the teaser clip that we saw, where as they're walking out, Tori's like, "Whoa, that was close."
Yeah, I think that's it. To me, that's the biggest clue. I think that we don't see a ton of Salida and Jose in the previews, and I also think that if there was any hesitation, like that says all you need to know, right?
Yeah. I also think too that overall it's probably just a smarter move.
I think so too.
Because if you think about it, you put in Salida and Jose, get them out of here, get them up out of here, right? But also now you get to keep, if you make that move, you get to keep your alliance because we're going to assume that Louise and Casper win. They come back, but now the champs think that you're on their side. You still leave room for the backdoor switcheroo. Maybe not next week, maybe not the week after that, but 2 weeks from now. You know what I mean? And you save that option because they're thinking that you're on their side because you didn't put CT and Tony in, but then you save that room for the back door later on. And again, I just think it's way smarter if Louise and Casper are in, and you want to ensure that they're coming back. And the best way to do that is have them face a weaker team. So yeah, I could see Booby making a play here, and it being drama in the moment, but thinking long term, it actually makes sense.
Yeah. So gotta ask you, Sheldon, who killed it for you this week?
Do you know who really killed it in this episode for me, other than Louise Hazel? Because every time I see her, I'm just like mesmerized, and I find myself like I have to like catch myself, and I'm like, pay attention, focus on the show, because I just get like lost in staring at Louise Hazel, and adding to that, it's not even just like she is beautiful, obviously, but I also get mesmerized by her voice, and it's almost like I'm being hypnotized. I don't know, like it just like she is incredible. I don't know. With that said, I did not pick Louise Hazel as my MVP in this episode because I could probably just make that pick each and every week, right? No? Yeah. Probably?
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And ignoring just her looks, Louise, from start to finish, has had a fantastic season. Like
but this is what I'm saying. Like, it's everything about her. It's not even that she's beautiful. It's not even that she's obviously a successful Olympian. It's not even that her accent is so amazing. But the fact that she is she's a cool person. Like, she's someone that it seems that you'd want to hang out with, right? It's someone who, her gameplay has been so good. She's been like a boss in this season, running the game up until this point. You know what I mean? Like, it's everything about her. It's her attitude, it's her swag, how she carries herself. Everything about her on this show has been so dope. It's not just on some superficial like, oh my god, she's so beautiful. She is, but there's way more to it than that. There's layers to it. You know what I'm saying? And I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah. But
oh, sorry, I just realized I still didn't tell you who my MVP is.
Yeah.
Can we start a separate podcast where I just talk about Louise Hazel? Is that a thing?
Sure.
Is that possible? Yeah, I'm joking. Okay, my MVP for this week, I mean, I don't want to say Shane because, they won and they were able to pick who he was able to pick who's going in. So I'm going to kind of cheat this one, and I'm going to pick Brooke. And the reason why I'm going to pick Brooke is because she was smart enough to play her position, right? Mm-hmm. Her position right now, she's liked by most of the cast, right? The cast isn't really like worried about her or threatened by her gameplay or anything like that, right? Like she seems to be nice and getting along with everyone. So she'll let Shane do all the dirty work, right? He'll do all the he'll get all the backlash for any cutthroat moves that get made, right? And she allowed him to step up to the forefront and do that. But she also played her role. Like she did take part. It's not like she was the weak link in terms of Jose or in terms of Lil Mama, right? Like she still did her part in trying to in the swimming challenge. And yeah, their team won. Pretty simple. I'm going with Brooke Hogan. Oh, sorry. And my other reason is because I still think low-key she's trying to pitch a reality show to MTV to us right now. So when I add that in and add that all together, Brooke Hogan, MVP. I see what you're doing, though. Trying to get that reality show going.
I'm going to go with Booby.
Ooh.
I'm going with Booby because I think he made the right move in picking Wes as his partner. I think that certainly the Stars Alliance was powerful, and it got the job done. In terms, because otherwise, if they hadn't banded together, they would have been wiped out. Yeah. Right? Like they would have all been off the show. It would have been champs versus champs, and that's it. But
yeah,
I think the time for that alliance to end has come. I think that we are one, maybe 2 episodes away from the final. And it's time to focus on who you're going to run that final with, and that's Wes Bergman. So I think, if I'm right, that he decides to put in Salida and Jose. I think that's the right move, and certainly picking Wes as his partner was the right move. Right? Like, that's a good forward-looking, forward-thinking move. And I mean, in all honesty, I know he and Louise and Casper hit it off, but that served its purpose, and maybe it's the end of your little like bromance, but maybe it's not. Like maybe they just understand that's a game and life goes on. But I think he's playing the game really well, and although he's not as outspoken as Louise or as outspoken as Casper, I think Booby is definitely, like, he's definitely played the game perfectly, low key, and like I like that he was, buying drinks for Shane and Brooke, like, making.
I really like that move.
Making subtle moves. So yeah, I think Booby's my MVP this week.
Dope. I like that pick. I like it.
Where can the people get you on Twitter and on Instagram?
You can find me on Twitter tweeting a lot from burner accounts. No, I'm joking. I do not have a Twitter burner account. Although I will say if I did have a Twitter burner account, it would be lit. But you can find me on Twitter in live and living color at Shell Alexander and on Instagram at Sheldon Alexander. No need for a burner account. I just give you the raw, real deal from my normal accounts.
You can find me on Twitter at JChidleyHill, and sure, why not, on Instagram at JChidleyHill. The exact same. I keep it simple.
It makes sense.
I keep it simple.
It makes sense.
Until next week, this was You Killed It.
You killed it.